Welcome to help better students learn information for this class and to help them and encourage them to better learn their vocabulary and grammar concepts. I created a lesson about 2 weeks ago on mnemonics, and I wanted to make a follow up video. So, what is a mnemonic? A mnemonic is a memory aid or a learning strategy to better memorize information. Be something as simple as a word or something as complex as a list of rules, or something like the order of the planets. Mnemonics take advantage of our brain's ability to remember visuals, images, things that sound like other things. We have an incredible spatial memory to memorize where places are and how to get around. Think about with facial recognition how many faces, historical, celebrities, or people that you know, um, how well you know them. And social memory, how well you remember social situations from childhood. All these have one key factor, and that is context. What we need to do is build in context. So many people think about mnemonics and they think about memory almost like a filing cabinet. The better organized information is, the more easy it is for people to retrieve it. I'd like to give you another example. When you're doing a difficult task and you need to memorize and use multiple things. So this is a good example of how we create proficiency. How do you speak um, on a certain task? With a rock climbing wall, some of the grips are easier to use to climb, others are much more difficult because they're smaller. I see incredible linguists not only seem to know which ones to grasp a hold of, and how to move upwards, they also seem to bring their own and seem to take them out of their bag, plug them in, and move so much faster. That's the power of mnemonics. We can climb a task and to be able to overcome it much more easily. Without this context, we're stuck on the ground. So, some examples PEMDAS for the order of operations. This trick with our fingers to memorize numbers, multiples of 9 up to 10. The alphabet song is actually the same music to Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. This always blows students' minds. To remember the order and colors in the rainbow, we have Roy G. Biv. King Philip came over for good soup or good spaghetti, as I learned it, to remember what is bigger, a species or a kingdom. And finally, every good boy deserves fruit, or as I learned it, every good boy deserves fudge, to remember where musical notes go on, um, excuse me, a bar. So here's another example I'd like to show you, and the power that we can use them for individual words. It took me one time to learn the word undir, the word for to sink. So it's not a word we use a lot, so I'm very surprised that I still remember it. But here's what happened. I looked at the word to sink in undir and I said, what does it sound like? It sounds like the word under. So I created a visual in my mind, a mental image, and I thought, think about a ship sinking. And then I added other mental links, like the movie Titanic. And I practiced and practiced this word. And within very little time, it's has stuck in my mind. I don't forget it. So this is a part of the keyword method. And this means that we're using symbols, visuals, and sounds to make connections or context. So we can use this with acronyms. So I ask students to remember SARE and a star and the rules for each by remembering doctor and place. And ask students during a test even, write down the moment you get the test, write down doctor and write down what each thing stands for. What does a star stand for? We also did this with the boot to remember which verbs to change the spelling, and with nosotros and vosotros, which ones we don't. And then how do I remember the word no say? Now I don't need to remember it, but in the beginning I remembered it. It looks like I don't know. And added on even more embarrassing jokes like I don't knows. So now here's the method of loci. Loci meaning locations in Latin. So this is the memory palace. Simonides was a Greek poet, and he went to a party. There was an accident, a fire, and the roof collapsed. Simonides was able to go back and recognize who was there by walking through the party and remembering the people that were there. So, in the method of loci, we make a story and we use a space that we feel that we remember very well to place objects, people, or other things that's going to help us to memorize information. So, here, someone took their house and put in all the ingredients that they would need to make what I'm guessing is a cake or pancakes. Students can also use this method by taking a place in their mind and adding vocabulary words, verbs, nouns, and other adjectives to create a story going through talking about the people, places, and actions to better memorize information. Chunking is the last one, and chunking is, once again, these all overlap. So in chunking, we're breaking down a lot of information into more memorable pieces. So take a look at this number. So break it into two, and you'll see that if I remember the year the Declaration of Independence was signed, we have our first four numbers. In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. We can remember that better. Also, making lists. So when we take a group of groceries and we break them down into three categories: dairy, produce, and starches, they become slightly more memorable. And we can focus on, all right, I got the dairies, milk, cream, and butter. But because this recipe requires so many vegetables that are different, I'm going to spend a little bit of extra time on this. And then finally, I tell students to take a word and to break it down into syllables. This is a great thing to do, but also let's look at this word. Because it's an adverb that ends in ly, when we have a verb that ends in ly, a word that ends in ly, the ly becomes the word mente. So when we have typica, that's a little bit more easy to remember. And then all we need to remember is we need to add on the mente for the ly. So this is the other last thing. A lot of the ones that I showed you in the previous examples were ones that were given to us, like the ABC song, and just drilled into our head. Students need to go out of their way to make them their own. A mnemonic only works if it helps you. If I give them a reference to a television show that I watched in the 80s or the 90s and it doesn't is something that they don't know, it's not going to help them. We need to build context, context, context. So no matter how silly it is, SpongeBob, a friend, something silly they said, whatever helps works. Use it or lose it. So you might not need the mnemonic forever. However, make it memorable, make it simple, and use it until you have committed this information to your memory. Make them funny. The funnier it is, the more likely you are to remember it. Keep it PG. If you have too many bathroom joke or something like that, some of them are unavoidable. But often when you have too many that are too graphic, violent, or just inappropriate, it tires you out. It really does. And it becomes harder to memorize them. So keep them PG. And then finally share them. If you are sharing them with a friend or a family member and you get a positive reaction, that's a greater chance that you will remember that mnemonic. So I hope this helps. And as I will say, I am always encouraging students to share with the class appropriate mnemonics. And I hope this helps. Please give me your feedback. Thank you very much. Bye.